Hi, I'm Mary Lamb, and welcome to Frank Gallery. We're a nonprofit artist collective in Chapel Hill, and this year we're celebrating our 10th anniversary with a series of special exhibits. This is our first invitational print show, and it features 5 outstanding regional artists with varying techniques and styles. I hope you enjoy the show, and I hope also that you come and visit us in our gallery at University Place in Chapel Hill. We're open from Tuesday through Saturday from noon to 5, and we require masks and distancing. Or visit our website at frankisart.com. And please be sure and mark your calendars for January 31st, when Bill, Dominic, and Raj will stream a demonstration on printmaking. Thanks a lot. Hope you enjoy the show and have a happy new year. Good night.
Hi, my name is Natalie Knox and I am the gallery manager at Frank Art Gallery in Chapel Hill. We are thrilled to announce our first ever print invitational show, and we'd love you to come take a look at it. We're fortunate enough to have Raj Bunag, Bill Fick, Ellen Heck, Heather Muse, and Dominic Rapone being shown here at Frank. We hope that you could get a chance to come and visit and check out all their beautiful work in the gallery. Here we have the work of Bill Fick. These are lino cuts mounted on cardboard. Bill is a professor at Duke University, where he works in the art department. So right here we have the work of Ellen Heck, and she is from Winston-Salem, and these are her figurative prints that we have here in the gallery, part of a series that she has. Raj Bunag, who is from Durham, has these incredibly detailed pieces here that are lino cuts. And right here we have these 6 pieces that are also part of a series from Heather Muse, who is from Greenville and is an associate professor at the university there. These are 4-plate etchings with Aquatint. And here we have a piece of Dominic Rapone's. We actually have him in 3 different places. This is a silk screen and mixed media piece. Dominic is a teacher teaching at a few local colleges, and he is based in Raleigh currently.
We're surrounded by printed images every day, from books and magazines to posters and pamphlets. Images reproduced in multiples are ubiquitous in our modern world, so much so that we often give them little to no thought. But what about the act of printmaking itself? That is, the activity of making pictures or designs from specially prepared wooden blocks or metal plates. What's involved in that, and how have artists used different printmaking techniques in the past to achieve their artistic aims? To prep ourselves for the Frank Gallery's 2021 Print Invitational Show, featuring local and regional printmakers, let's take a look at 3 fundamental methods of printmaking used in the West: woodcutting, engraving, and etching. My name is Dana Cowan, and I'm the Sheldon Peck Curator for European and American Art at the Acklen Art Museum at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Let's take a look at some works from the Acklen's own collection, which houses over 11,000 prints, to learn more about the basics of these printmaking techniques. Simply put, a print is a work of art on paper, produced multiple times, with each one pulled from an inked surface. If you've ever used a stamp, you'll understand the oldest method, known as relief, which is printing from raised images. Using a plank of wood, or later linoleum, an artist uses knives, gouges, and chisels to carve around what they want printed. Once inked, only the raised surface will be printed when paper is pressed against the block. Early in the 15th century, woodcuts were used to create playing cards and religious images that were often colored by hand. As you can see in these German prints, much of the design is achieved through outlining of the figures, and there is minimal use of lines to indicate shading for modeling. It wasn't until German artist Albrecht Dürer came on the scene in the late 15th century that the true capabilities of the medium were realized. He revolutionized printmaking through new techniques, complex designs, and innovative subject matter. There's no need for the hand coloring that we saw in the previous prints, which were only completed decades earlier. Using dense parallel lines and cross-hatching, Dürer creates three-dimensional form. His compositions have a foreground, a middle ground, and a background. Every element of the design and story is considered and well executed. In the Four Horsemen from his early Apocalypse series, Dürer creates a compact group of overlapping riders charging across the land and trampling as they go. It's a dramatic cavalcade set along a diagonal axis that features the riders' conquest, war, plague, and death. We can almost hear the thundering horse hooves and feel the wind from the swirling air as they pass us by. With dynamic images like this, it's no surprise that Dürer achieved international fame during his own lifetime. The lines of woodcuts can't be carved too thinly, though, because they break under the pressure of repeated printings. And although Dürer was able to achieve some technically amazing results in the medium, he couldn't quite achieve the fineness of line made from an intaglio print. An intaglio print uses a metal plate, typically copper, and reverses the method used in woodcutting. Here the artist also removes material from the plate, but in this instance by incising it or scratching it. When ink is applied, it actually rests in the grooves created, which produces the design when printed. Engravings, etchings, drypoints, and other techniques are considered intaglio. Dürer's depiction of the flagellation from his Engraved Passion series demonstrates the incredible skill required to produce an engraving. It's a slow and physically demanding process as the artist pushes his engraving tool, known as a burin, into the metal, scooping out his design as he moves the plate around. Engraved lines are sharp and clean, and the modeling of forms in a composition are based on closely placed parallel and cross-hatched lines. The width of each line is determined by the pressure exerted. Wide lines are carved deeply, while thin lines are shallower, producing incredible tonal ranges. The exacting medium of engraving was not for every artist, though, and during the 16th and 17th centuries, more artists were using etching to create their prints, which was much less laborious. The etching process uses acid instead of a burin to corrode or bite the incised lines from the metal plate. After a waxy ground substance is applied to the surface of the plate, the artist draws through it with a metal point or etching needle, which exposes the metal. The plate is then immersed in an acid bath, which bites into the plate through the exposed lines. Once the waxy substance is removed, the plate can be inked and printed like an engraving. 17th century Dutch artist Rembrandt van Rijn was among the most accomplished, innovative, and experimental etchers of his time, and created approximately 300 plates over the course of his career. Since the etching ground offers less resistance, it's a lot like drawing, giving the artist more freedom in their design. Rembrandt's large and ambitious depiction of the Death of the Virgin shows his painterly approach to etching. The foreground is carefully worked, with lots of shading, while the clouds and angels above appear quickly sketched and ethereal. Each figure surrounding the Virgin, shown lying in bed at the center, is unique in their grief, displaying Rembrandt's remarkable ability to portray human emotion. In addition to etching, Rembrandt often included the drypoint technique in his prints. In drypoint, lines are scratched directly on the surface of the plate, which creates a burr of metal to either side of the line. These little balls of metal catch the ink, producing areas of velvety black. Rembrandt also experimented with the wiping and inking of his plates to create varying dramatic effects, meaning not all impressions of the same plate have the same appearance. Printmakers like Albrecht Dürer and Rembrandt have left an important legacy. For centuries, artists have continued to use printmaking as a major means of expression, using methods beyond woodcutting, engraving, and drypoint, like lithography, screen print, and photomechanical methods. When combined, these printmaking techniques can also produce some pretty amazing artistic results. At the Frank Gallery's Print Invitational show, you'll have an opportunity to enjoy the work of local and regional printmakers, who each have their own unique approach to printmaking. And although the act of printmaking has been around for centuries, it still continues to be captivating and exciting.
Hi, my name is Ellen Heck, and I'm a printmaker based in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. This is my first time showing at Frank Gallery, and I'm very excited to be part of this invitational print exhibition. In this exhibition, I'll be exhibiting 3 figurative prints, which are part of my ongoing Place and Process series of prints. It's a group of square format combination woodcut Drypoint prints that look at different parts of the printmaking process. The first of these is called an arrangement of closed curves. The second, ampersand and ampersand. And the third, portrait of a self-portrait. In the past for this series, I've depicted people drawing paper, inking plates, operating the machinery. And often in the past, I've focused on how the human body and a machine, or the human body and the tools that the printmakers use, become one in this very focused way. In an arrangement of closed curves, I was looking very carefully at having this motif, this closed curve, show up in as many places as I could make it. So you have the curve of the press wheel, the closed curves of the interior portions of the wheel, which are sort of lining up and interacting with the closed circle of the arms of the printmaker, which are roughly about the same scale as the wheel itself. And I was hoping that that the viewer would be able to pick up on all of the other closed curves that you start noticing when you start looking for these things, like the bracelet and the curve of the line on the plate, the earring, perhaps even the apron around her neck, and up here in the upper portion, the strings that are used, at least in the studio, to dry paper. In the print ampersand and ampersand, I was also looking at form. Here, it's the form of this ampersand and how the human body is mimicking that shape, which is really a beautiful typographic form. And this particular printmaker is kneeling in front of a letterpress case. And finally, in Portrait of a Self-Portrait, I was looking specifically at that part of the printmaking process where you pull the paper off of the press and look at that final image. Because no matter how planned out the final image is, it's always a little bit of a surprise, and sometimes a lot of bit of a surprise to see what has come off the press, the result of this collaboration with chance. So here, the printmaker is pulling a print off the press, and that print itself is the print that you're looking at. It's a self-portrait, but in this case, you're also looking at the person making the self-portrait. Thank you very much for including me in this show, and I'm really looking forward to seeing all the other work.
Hey, I'm Heather Muse. I'm a Canadian artist living and working in North Carolina. I'm here in my home studio in Greenville, North Carolina, where I work at East Carolina University as a professor in the printmaking department. First, I'd like to say a big thank you to the gallery for having this show. I was really honored and flattered to be included amongst these printmakers, many of whom I've known for some time and some who I'm just meeting for the first time. So it's a great way for us to connect and get to show each other, as well as you, what we've been doing. I fell in love with printmaking in my undergraduate university, the University of Windsor in Canada. I studied under Dan Dingler, an amazing lithographer. He encouraged me to pursue my graduate studies, and I was lucky enough to study under Beauvais Lyons at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, another amazing lithographer. So as you can guess, my first love was always lithography, but in the past few years I've been doing some etchings. The way I do my etchings is a little bit different than most intaglio artists, especially the way I print my color. I wanted to show you a quick example of how I print the different colors separately, but stack them one on top of each other on the same piece of paper. This causes the ink to mix together visually and create all the different colors of the print. This is the starting place. This is the copper plate on which all the information is put on and then inked and then transferred to the paper. The first two colors I print are the black and yellow colors. The second colors I print is the red. And then finally the blue. Those 4 color layers stack together to create the final print. In addition to printmaking, I also do some other types of art making. I'm really keen on paper making and paper sculpture. I also do a lot of textile works. You can see my latest piece behind me. It started off as a woodblock relief print, a rather large one, and once COVID hit, I decided I needed to cover it with literally hundreds of thousands of sequins. So that project's been keeping me busy for the past few months. A big thanks to Frank Gallery for inviting me to participate in this show. I'm really thrilled to be part of it, and I really look forward to meeting all of you in the near future. Thanks again.
I'm Bill Fick. I'm an artist here, well, not in Chapel Hill, but in Durham, North Carolina. I am a printmaker and I teach in the art department at Duke University, where I've been teaching there for roughly 13 years now, I believe. I teach printmaking and drawing, and actually next semester I'm teaching a class in comics and poster design. So it's going to be a busy semester next semester. Let's see, I graduated from Duke as an undergrad back in '86, and then I went on to get my MFA from UNC Greensboro in 1990, where I actually was a painting major. There really wasn't a print major, but I actually did mostly printmaking while I was there. But I did also do painting because that's what I got my MFA. But so since 1990, I consider myself having been being a professional artist since 1990. and my focus is printmaking, and even more focused than that, I'm a lino cut artist. I consider that's my primary medium is lino cut, and I think, not sure exactly why that came about, but I think of all the printmaking techniques that I studied, that was the one that I really took to from the very beginning. I liked etching, but I just really liked the carving component to lino cut, and I didn't really get into woodcut, probably because with woodcut you have to keep your tools really sharp, and you have to learn how to sharpen tools, and I never learned how to do that. So I just use speedball disposable blades with my lino cut. So anyway, so I focus on lino cut. The work that's going to be in the exhibit here at Frank Gallery will be lino cuts. Years that after I got out of grad school, I really was pretty much making prints around the clock as much as possible. It's kind of like all I did. So I was able to build up a nice body of work, kind of define myself within this print community in the South, and then I did a little teaching, and then around, let's say 1995, I moved to New York City. I got a North Carolina Arts Council grant, and that allowed me to make some work up in New York, and then after I made that work, the work I made there was with a contract printer, and we made some large lino cuts, or I carved them and then he printed them, my friend Perry Tymason. Anyway, so what happened was that I really liked it up there, so I decided to, after that project, I ended up moving to New York. And I was up in New York for 8 years as a practicing artist, trying to do what I could to get by. I taught at Pratt Institute as an adjunct faculty. And it was an amazing opportunity to be in a great art community. I met tons of artists, lots of printmakers. And then from there, I traveled a fair amount, did a lot of workshops. Taught a lot of workshops in other locations. But then after 8 years, got to the point where I was getting to where, okay, am I really going to be able to, live in New York? Because I started to make a little money, and then once you start making a little money when you're a poor artist, then you get in trouble because you're puts you into a different category. So I didn't have. So really, I was starting to feel like, well, I don't know, this is gonna be tough to hang in here as a middle class artist. So, and also I got married at that time, and my wife, we didn't have any real. We loved New York, and it was an amazing place, and we had lots of great friends. But it just seemed like we really needed to make a change. And we didn't really have a plan. However, I did have obviously contacts in North Carolina, so we moved to North Carolina. My wife's from Philadelphia, and so we thought, well, we can go to North Carolina. I had family here, and I had lots of contacts in this area, so that made sense for us to come here. We actually moved to Chapel Hill first, and lived in Chapel Hill for 8 years, I guess, and. I started teaching at Duke at the time, but I also had taught at Carolina, UNC. I had taught at UNC Greensboro, so I was able to get into the teaching world when I returned to this area. And then I did get to start teaching at Duke as adjunct, and then I'm a lecturer now, so which is we don't call that regular faculty. I'm not tenure track, but it's I teach full time, and I'm also the assistant director for visual and studio arts at the Rubenstein Art Center, which is a new arts center at Duke, which is about 3 years old now. So I work with a lot of visiting artists, and we work and create programming for visual arts on campus. But anyway, that's sort of like the rundown in terms of my sort of bio and living situation. In terms of my art, my work is based on lots of different things, but at the moment it's really focused on comics, mostly older comics, Silver Age comics, 1950s, 60s comics, and also in sort of pop culture imagery, signage, anything really sort of like printing that is done on a more commercial sort of something that you might see again with like comics or popular culture posters, things like that. The images that I'm showing in the show are what I'm calling them, they're these like comics that are for a New America kind of thing, where they're not characters in a real comic. They're sort of, if they were in a comic, maybe they, and they're not in the greatest of shape. They're kind of beat up looking characters, having some rough times, and it sort of reflects what's been going on with COVID. The 5 pieces that I'm showing were done this year, and really are a reflection of my sort of observations or feelings about the turmoil that's been going on with COVID, and the rough. So these characters are struggling or having some rough times. There's one's a werewolf, so it's not really like, they're not all humans. One's kind of a strange-looking goblin-looking character. But anyway, they're I like to call them comics, characters in comics, but they really aren't from a real comic. So I'm just using that as a tool for me to create with and work on with a theme and subject that I'm very interested in. They're all lino cuts, black. There's no color. They're just black ink, and they vary in size from about 18 inches by 24 inches to about 12 by 14 or something like that. So they're not really big, but they're not tiny either. So, but they are a part of a series that I've been working on for many years now that are based on these sort of created characters that don't really have there's no real story, but they sort of reflect a kind of down and out have characters who've had maybe a sort of a rough time of it, or maybe also there's also these monster characters that I've been working with too, which are part of this kind of world of down and out characters who are struggling, or and for me, I think it's like they say, well, why are you working with these kinds of characters? I think for me, it's about the characters. Those are the characters in comics that I'm most interested in. They're the ones who've seen the most. Sort of also, have a lot of personality. I'm not so interested in the hero characters. I'm a little more interested in the villain characters, the characters that maybe are more misunderstood, and these reflect those kinds of characters.
Hi, I'm Dominic Rapone, and I'd like to sit here and talk to you about my work today. I was born in New York, and I taught at School of Visual Arts for 20 years. I moved down here with my family to North Carolina, where I currently teach at the Craft Center at NC State. I was trained as an illustrator and started my living as an illustrator, but during the years in school, I found a kinship to printmaking. Most notably silkscreening, which my work at the gallery is focused on. Silkscreening is a process of doing stencils, one layer of color over another layer of color, either opaque or transparently. The method that I choose is dictated by my medium, by my materials. In the work in the gallery, I'm using silkscreening, but also mixed media, so painting, pencils, paint. This gives me a wider range of looks that I can achieve instead of just doing pure silkscreening. My former bodies of work were pure silkscreen with additions. The works at the gallery currently are one of one, meaning that they're only one in existence. The techniques that I used were transparent colors of silkscreening layered over paintbrushes, drawing on top of the silkscreening. If you go back to the history of silkscreening, ancient Chinese were doing stencils with horsehair and paper. The modern version was taken and turned from a industrial technique to more of an artistic technique. The works by Andy Warhol and Robert Rauschenberg, those artists used commercial ideas and put them to their use as artistic endeavors. When you look at my work at the show, you'll see flat areas of color, and those would be the areas of silkscreen that were layered one on top of the other. Now, when setting up a silkscreen, I'm using a screen that has been coated with emulsion, which is light sensitive, and with that I shoot stencils onto it. Those stencils then are washed out, leaving open areas in the screen. I could then layer ink through those open areas, putting those down onto paper or whatever else I decide. In this case, it's paper. I hope you enjoy the work at the gallery, and come by soon. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Raj Banug. I'm a artist and printmaker located in Durham, North Carolina. I've been in North Carolina for about 8 years. I moved here right after I graduated from the Maryland Institute College of Art with a BFA in printmaking in 2012. I've been printmaking for about 15 years, and I don't plan on stopping. The main medium of choice that I use is relief printmaking, which involves the printing from flat surfaces that have been carved on, usually consisting of linoleum or wood. I use two methods of carving when I'm working on my pieces, and it would be blackline carving, which is carving the white space and leaving the black line as the main illustrative line. And then there's white line carving, which is the opposite, where I'm carving out the illustrative line, but it's in white, and and leaving the black space. But my current work that I'm showing at the Frank Gallery are two pieces from an ongoing series I have called The March of the Drugonauts, fantastical manifestations of the war on drugs. And with this work, I'm turning the various substances that our government has deemed illegal, and turning them into these Godzilla-like monsters, like running amok in our world. And with this series, I hope to kind of just show just the downsides of what prohibition does, and how it has done nothing but destroy communities, destroy families, and also destroy human lives by the mass incarceration of nonviolent drug users and the criminalization of addiction, and hopefully to create a conversation that starts our kind of deprogramming of what drug addiction really is in this country, and looking at the various players and people and pieces that have gone on over this 60-year war that's done nothing but brought out the worst in us. So hopefully with this work, I'm just trying to just start a conversation about the war on drugs, and hopefully to get people to rethink what we have been told about these things. But thank you for checking out my work, and if you want to see more of it, you can go to rajbanug.com. And also, thank you.